Hi there. In the videos in this module, I hope that you got a feel for how the mind works. There's this inner map where all the basic functions like inner images, inner sounds, and sensations are present. It's also in the inner map that our most advanced functions like the executive functions, but also our sense of identity and self-worth, and all our beliefs are managed. You experienced in your own mind how easily you can change things in the inner map and what profound consequences this has. And you may even have started talking to your family and child about the inner map and possibly even started doing the action points with your family. And there's one thing we haven't touched upon yet. It's why the mind does what it does. Why does the mind make your child overly angry at times? Why does the mind make your child overly distracted at times? That's what this video is about. It's called the power of positive intention because it turns out that when we look at our children with one very specific mindset, so many things change from that second on. This is the most basic foundation that my entire work relies on. I recorded a live video to explain this magically transformative insights for you. I hope that you can ignore the grammatical issues in the very beginning of the video. Hey, Anders Ronnau here. It literally breaks my heart when I see parents who doesn't understand their child and isn't able to acknowledge and appreciate the child they have because they have ADHD, because they have really poor or inexpedient behaviors. I would really like to help you understand your child better and to really value the power of that child, and in that process, help your child understand himself better, because that's going to help raise his self-worth significantly. Now, surprisingly few parents really know of this insight, and even fewer really understand it and take it to heart. I hope I can help you take it to heart by leading you through two examples of this that'll help you understand better what's going on inside your child and give you the tools and insights to talk to your child about what is going on in there, and in the process, not only help him change his behaviors, but also allow him to realize that he is really an awesome kid. So first, let me give you a little story. This is a story about a boy who's about 7 years old. He's having Sunday breakfast with his family, dad, mom, and his aunt. I know his aunt, and she trained with me. So when the kid reaches out and turns over a bottle of milk, a carton of milk, milk spills all over the place. And his dad is berating him, his mom is blaming him for doing it once again. You probably know this situation, maybe not with the milk, but with something else. Now the aunt, who isn't emotionally involved in this and doesn't have that immediate, oh no, not again response, like you may know from yourself, she takes just a little pause and then she asks the kid, hey kid, what were you trying to do when you turned over the milk carton? And the kid looks at her and says, well, I saw that Dad was getting ready to use the butter, and I wanted really to give it to him really fast so that he could have the butter when he needed it. Now, if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. It breaks my heart. Here's a kid who really wanted to help his dad and be a really good kid. He looks around, he sees what needs to be done, or if you will, what his dad needs in a minute. He loves his dad, he wants to be a good son, so he grabs the butter and brings it over to his dad, or reaches over to his dad as fast as he possibly can, overturning the milk, and gets berated for it by his dad, and his mom for that matter. So the kid is there with a positive intention. He really wants to help. He's a good kid, he wants to help. But he has unfortunate or inexpedient behaviors. His aunt, of course, started teaching him how you can reach across the table and look first. So look first, then reach across the table, and told him to reach over with the butter to his dad so his dad could get it. So they used this little opportunity. Instead of further berating the kid, she used this opportunity to help him learn. So this became a learning opportunity and an acknowledgement opportunity for the kid. She gave him the chance to express what was really going on inside of him and what he wanted, what were his motivations for doing this inexpedient thing. So this is a beautiful example of what I think is the most important insight for me working with kids, working with teens, working with adults with the ADHD diagnosis. If you understand that behavior and intention are two different things, and that behavior can be inexpedient while the intention can be perfectly positive, then you have a beautiful opportunity to talk to your child about that positive intention, and you have a beautiful opportunity to acknowledge your child for that, for being a good child with inexpedient behaviors. So let's look at it. The concept or the insight that I have integrated into my mind, that I look at everything with, every person's behavior, I think, wow, behind that behavior is a positive intention. So behind every behavior is a positive intention. When I think of this, I can look at a person doing whatever it is, even illegal behavior, and I'll be wondering, I wonder what's behind that behavior. And I literally think behind the behavior. So I'm thinking there's a behavior out here that I'm seeing, and then there's something behind it, closer to the core of that kid. And I want to talk to the kid. I don't want to talk about the behavior, or at least I want to talk about it as little as possible, because most every kid knows that their behavior is wrong. The kids want to do good things, so when they do bad things or when they do inexpedient things, they're really trying as hard as they can. And I want to talk to this kid and help him change his ways. I don't want to talk to the behavior or try to change the behavior, because if you want to change things from the inside out, then you got to talk to the kid that is behind the behavior. So we got to talk to the kid that has the positive intention. Once we realize that behavior and intention are two separate things, we can separate them as far as possible from each other. And I do this by writing behavior all the way out here and intention all the way out here, because it helps to understand, or it helps in the understanding of that they're discrete things and they're not the same. So if you do bad things, you don't have bad behavior. You still have a positive intention, but it comes out in a non-positive way. And I'll show you here how that can come about. Now, one thing I want to make absolutely sure before I start this is I don't condone poor behavior. I don't condone bad behavior. I don't condone any type of inexpedient behavior. But I understand that it comes from a positive intention. And if we want to change this poor behavior, the fastest and most efficient way of doing that is by going past or through the positive intention here. So we want to look at this because it'll help the kid change the behavior from the inside out. The case I want to start out with here is with an approximately 8-year-old boy. The boy has his inexpedient behavior, which is he's fighting other kids in the schoolyard at school, and he's getting into a lot of trouble over that. He's getting berated by his parents and by his school teachers and whatnot. So everybody wants this to stop. And here, his teachers, his parents have been trying to help him change his ways here. They've been saying, well, you should turn your back on those guys and walk away, or you should find a teacher and tell him what's going on. They've even asked, why are you hitting other kids in school? So instead of asking, why do you do this, which is the normal parental response, we want to go and figure out what is the intention, because the why does not describe the intention or the motivation to do this. It describes some kind of cause that comes before this. If you ask the kid, if you ask the kid about this, he would explain how the other kids bullied him, which wouldn't explain why he would hit them back. And it wouldn't explain anything about his motivation for hitting them back. They were there, they bullied him, he hit them. Makes sense if you're a child. So I asked him, what was your intention? And of course, kids don't understand intention. So I asked him, what was it that you were trying to get out of hitting these kids? Trying being an important word here, because he wasn't succeeding. Most often you don't succeed with this. So I asked him, what were you trying to get out of this? And he answered, I want them to respect me. And of course, this makes absolutely sense already. So the kid goes into the fight hoping for them to respect him so that they'll stop bullying him so he doesn't have to fight them anymore. But this is some kind of, if you will, biker respect that doesn't last very long, and that's motivated by fear by the opposing part. So it doesn't work very well. And in school, it kind of has the opposite effect going for this, because if you're explosive, you'll be bullied the most. Unless you actually hurt other people, then maybe you'll manage to get some kind of fearful respect response. Right? So this kid didn't. So they kept bullying him, so he kept hitting them. If this is your motivation for hitting kids in the school, turning your back to the other kids is not something that'll gain respect. And going to a teacher is not something that'll gain you respect. So he didn't know what else to do, and it still wasn't working for him. He knew that. So I asked him. Now, over here, we enter what's called the goal ladder, which means that there's a goal above this, more important than this. So I asked him, if you could have gotten their respect by hitting them, what would you have gotten out of that? Now, these are long and strange sentences that we don't normally ask, but when you ask them, they make perfect sense for a kid like this. And he answered me, well, then I wanted them to stop bullying me, which makes perfect sense. And then I asked him, if you were able to make them stop bullying you, what would you get out of that? They'd leave me alone. Now we're getting to this is inherently positive for him, right? But it just becomes more and more positive the further you get up this ladder. Now, when I asked him, what would you get out of them leaving you alone? And he said, well, I can have a quiet moment in the schoolyard or at school. And what's more important than that was that he could be at peace. So the goal of having that quiet moment was for him to be at peace. Now, the problem with this, of course, was that to be at peace is very difficult to reach if you start by hitting or fighting in the schoolyard. So this was never going to give this ladder and would never bring him peace, which is why it's inexpedient behavior. So he really wasn't doing a good job of this, but he was doing the best he could, but because this was what was in him, and he needed to figure out a different way, a different behavior that would help him get more of this. Now, already, before we start looking at the new behavior, we already have a significant change in this boy's physiology and in his understanding of himself. Like, he got taller and taller the further we got up into this. Why? Because this is the behavior of a bad boy. He knew he was a bad boy. He knew he was no good. So his self-worth was really poor, really low. And by understanding that he was actually doing this to be left alone, to have a quiet moment, and to be in peace, be at peace, he understood that his poor behavior was not a symptom of a poor person or a bad person. It was a symptom of him not having the tools to act in a different way. But that he inherently, within him, sought peace. This is the motivation of a good kid. This is the motivation of somebody who has his values straight, right? And most every child I've ever worked with has this part of here, up here, is just beautiful. That's why I believe that this will be the single most important insight you will ever get about your child. Because once you understand that whatever your child is doing, whether it's fighting, screaming, forgetting, whatever it is, you can count on the fact that there's a really positive intention at the heart of this. Now, just by talking about this with the kid, he understood that trying to do this to get to here was just a really bad way of doing it. I believe he actually called it a stupid way to get to here. So I asked him, what would you like to do differently? Like, what should change for you to get more of this so you don't do this? What new alternative behavior would be an expedient behavior, a good behavior, something, a behavior that you want? And he said, well, if I can just spend my lunch break at the library, then everything will change, because this almost only happens in the lunch break, where there's too much time to kill and where the other kids start bullying me. But when I can go to the library and spend time there, I can actually be at peace. I can have a quiet moment and they'll leave me alone. I get all the best things from here just by being alone in the library. And I'll kind of calm down and get ready for the next class. These are the words, paraphrased words, but the words and thinking of an 8-year-old kid who used to be like that, but would rather be like that. Now, this changes his behaviors. This changes the way, like the amount of fights he gets into. This doesn't change the fact that he has temper and that he might hit again, but it makes him understand not only that he's a good kid, but also that there are other ways for him to act. Nobody ever suggested this to him, and even if they did, he might not have approved. But now that he came up with it based on this, it was just such an easy choice for him to go this way. His mom supported it, the school supported it, and he got rid of most of those problems in school just by that, by changing his understanding of himself and by changing his behavior based upon that new understanding of himself and what his motivations were. I hope that that gives you some kind of insight into your child also. And I think if I should sum this up, there's just one thing that you can take away from this. When you see behavior that is inexpedient, get curious. I wonder what is going on inside my child's mind right now. I wonder what is motivating him to do this. I wonder what he is trying to get out of that behavior for himself. Now, a small note on this. Everything over here is about the kid, not about society. It's not some kind of altruistic, higher purpose motivation to do good in the world. This might be purely egotistic. It might be, I yell and scream so I can get my will, so I can get my way, so that mom will give me what I want, so that so I can be happy. Now, when the kid is 4, the kid won't be able to change that into another behavior. But when he's 8 and he still has that behavior of the 4-year-old, he will be able to understand, wow, that's really not working for me. So this doesn't give him this, like it did when he was 3 or 4. So when this doesn't give him this, and he's cognitively well enough functioning or mature enough to understand that that's just not possible, then he'll be ready to create a new behavior for himself. I hope that the power of the positive intention makes sense to you after this video. In the next video, we'll explore the positive intention in greater detail and what it means for some of the typical ADHD traits. This will make you understand your child and his behaviors better, so please carry on with the second part of this material in the next video.